Welcome back. You're watching Metropole Television. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kinyanjui. This is your official sector trend. Yes, we have settled into the news shortly, but we take a drift today and talk understanding international money transfers and how that specifically works. We're going to look at cross-border digital payment services providing international money transfers in an aim of growing the economy, where we get to feature a company behind that, WorldRemit. And joining us this morning is Sharon Kinyanjui, who's the director for Europe, Middle East and Africa Receive Markets at WorldRemit. Sharon, good morning.
Good morning, Simba.
Happy to have you around. Let's get into that conversation. Could you first let us in on who WorldRemit is, Sharon?
Sure, of course. Happy to. So WorldRemit is a cross-border digital payments company. We're one of the largest, actually. We've been in existence for over 10 years. And in that period of time, we've served over 5.7 million customers and sent, literally billions of dollars, close to $10 billion cross payments during that time. So sending from about 52 send countries all across the world to about 130 receive markets, of which Kenya is one. So our customers normally in Kenya would receive money in their mobile wallets, like Safaricom or Airtel, or they would receive money into their Kenya bank accounts, both in KES and USD, or they can collect cash or airtime top up. So there's a variety of ways that people are able to receive money.
Pretty much. All right, so let's continue with that then. When we're talking about companies like WorldRemit, then one of the things that we normally look at, Sharon, is exactly how diaspora remittances into the country have been. And one thing that is going to really be a standout is that when we're talking about these remittances for the entire of 2020 and actually even to 2021, we cannot talk about that much of an impact. It looks as if this is an area that has carried itself throughout. What would you say is behind that increased rate of money transfers into the country?
I would say it's a variety of different reasons, right? But the predominant reason is because, like you say, we have a diaspora. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs estimates that we have a diaspora of about 3 to 4 million Kenyans out there, basically, with a larger majority being in places like the US, the UK, and to some extent also Europe and the Middle East. And these people have been doing a great job, basically sending remittances back home, right? The Central Bank of Kenya estimates that up until June 2020 this year, those same diasporans basically sent $3 billion, and that's a 20% increase over the 2.8 billion that they sent the year before. So they're doing a really great job. And I think in a year where the pandemic is still rife, and Simba, it's only recently that Kenya came off the red list for countries like the UK. So tourism has really taken a battering. So in reality, the remittances that are being sent are really what is buoying up the country in terms of hard currency.
Yes. All right, so let's also talk about that disparity. I think you'll be at a quite proper position to tell us this morning on how those numbers look. So when it comes to the use of WorldRemit, would you also say that indeed Kenyans use it to also transfer money from the country?
Yeah, so we see a variety of reasons, right? So yes. I act as basically the regional director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the receive regions, and I see different behaviors in different markets. But definitely in Kenya, the one behavior that I see is people are receiving money for medical reasons and expenses. Yes. So especially now, we're also seeing people have basically the same regular expenses, paying bills like electricity. And education, let's not forget, schools are now back in season. People are physically back in school, so people have the need to be able to pay for school fees. And then we've also seen a more interesting trend of late, where people are choosing to send money back also in hard currency, in USD. I think in the back of some people's minds, next year is an election year. They want to save some money in hard currency, in dollars, which we do at WorldRemit, so that just as in case, you never know how things are going to go. So that's one of the trends that we're seeing, an increase in dollar transfers.
Yes. So could you confirm for me this trend? I mean, Sharon, before 2020, I mean, things were, I would like to say, slow somewhat in terms of adopting digital technologies when even it comes to doing businesses. Would you say that, indeed, when you look at your data in the markets that you're in charge of, would you say that there was a spike in use of WorldRemit as we got into the coronavirus pandemic, or indeed you already established yourselves and, well, COVID-19 was insignificant?
I would say it's probably the latter. We had established ourselves, but definitely the pandemic took us to new heights,
Yes.
right? In a lot of markets, especially on what we call the north side of sending, which is effectively Western countries, a lot of them are a lockdown. They were unable to leave their homes. Many of them have been home for like a year plus, if you look at markets like the UK. So they needed to be able to send money back home in the safety of their homes. And the thing about WorldRemit is basically we're an app-based and digital-based remittance company. So from the safety of their laptop or from the safety of their phone, they're able to send money back home. And literally we saw a huge increase, a double-digit increase in the number of customers who began to use us, particularly during the pandemic.
Right. Now, before we get talking about those transfers, somebody's listening to you this morning, Sharon, and wondering, how do I start using WorldRemit? Who can use WorldRemit? Can we know how it works? I know you get started if I want to use it right at this moment.
Sure. So for WorldRemit, like I mentioned, we send from about 53 countries. So if one of your somebody's out there and they're listening and they're out in the UK or in let's say in the US and they wanted to be able to send money back home, they would just go onto the Apple Store or Google Store, basically download the app, follow the registration process, which is literally takes less than a minute, because it's important to us that we put into place security protocols like KYC. We know who you are, right?
Yes.
And then within one to 2 minutes, honestly, you'd be able to send money. That person would be able to send money back directly to a loved one here in Kenya, and they could receive their money straight into their wallet, M-Pesa or Airtel.
Yes.
Literally within a minute, or they can choose to send a bank transfer, both in KES or USD, and again, those would also be received within the same day.
Yes. So, but you have to interlink it to either your mobile wallet or your bank account. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so correct. So you can either choose to go to www.worldremit.com, so do it on your laptop,
yes,
or you can choose to download the app from the App Store, your preferred App Store.
Pretty much. So here's another. You find yourself in what is quite a unique space, this remittance as we're talking about here. And somebody's going to ask you, what do you think the government needs to do just to promote this specific area of remittances into the country? And do you think that companies like your company, WorldRemit, have been recognized by the government as playing that integral part in these remittances that are coming into the country? In fact, for the very first time in 2020, the ones that we got into the country were actually bigger than even the proceeds that we got from tourism up to now in 2021. We do not expect that tourism is going to beat diaspora remittances in terms of the proceeds that we get into the country. Do you feel, therefore, Sharon, that indeed you are well recognized in that part that you play in that specific area?
That is a great question, Simba. I think there's definitely room for more recognition, for sure, and more opportunities for us to continue to work closely with the Central Bank of Kenya. We do work through with the Central Bank of Kenya via our partners, on the ground, the mobile network operators and the banks. But definitely, I think there should be more recognition of the role that remittance companies play in basically bringing currency into the market. And Kenya is a free market. I think that's one of the key things that we need to kind of recognize, in the sense that we allow different currencies into the market. But more than that, allowing companies like ourselves to operate the models that we operate reduces the cost of remittances, right?
Yes.
It becomes much more affordable for people in the diaspora to send money back home, which is to the benefit of the Kenya government, right? And the government overall. So definitely we're looking for more collaborative ways to continue working closer with parties like the Central Bank of Kenya to make sure that we continue to make remittances affordable.
Yes. I've got to run this to you. I've spoken to other people in your field who like to say that indeed the government needs to come up with a Diaspora Remittances ministry. Do you think that would be another way to recognize and also sort of, I would say, operationalize this specific area for diaspora remittances?
Yes, I think it's a very innovative idea, and I think any idea that brings the diaspora and gives the diaspora a voice,
yes,
especially back at home, I think is always a great idea, right? These are people, like we said, this is the greatest channel for foreign currency into the market, right? We need to give these people a voice. So if there are different ways that we can collaborate, or the government can collaborate with organizations like this diaspora, or help create this diaspora forum where there's a level of interaction, I think that can only bring positivity.
Pretty much. All right, so let me take you back to exactly what you mentioned, and I would like us to, for you just take it a little back. You said you're in charge of specific markets. We'd like to know what markets those are and how integral they are in terms of those remittances that we get into the country.
Sure. So I'm in charge of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So the receive side of businesses,
yes,
which is basically how remittance flow into these particular markets. So it's
yes,
actually the largest region for WorldRemit. The connection is actually quite simple. Of course, there are a lot of remittances that come from Europe. There are an increasing amount of remittances that are coming from Middle East, right? Because we're also finding that people have started exploring places like Saudi, UAE, as opposed to always going to the US. So basically, I'm in charge of, and of course, Africa. Africa is our largest receive region. We serve over 42 countries in Africa. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of flows coming from everywhere. The US, Australia, even as far out as Australia, we always find there are always Kenyans willing and able to send money back home. So yeah, so that's the region I cover, Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Pretty much. Well, let's talk about exactly also what the pandemic has shown us. And we've looked at different reports, even the World Bank report saying that indeed when it comes to digital and finance, we still have that gender divide or that gender gap. Sharon, you find yourself in a very, I would say, strategic position as a lady in this position. What do you think the COVID-19 pandemic has done, especially if it's stressing on moving our economies into the digital space? Do you think that moving our economies to the digital space is bound to levelize the field and have more women come into this field? Or still we're talking about that divide still in the digital space?
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for more women to enter into the digital space, for sure. I think quite often when women think about the digital space, maybe they're intimidated or they think you need to be hard coding, right? Not everybody's going to be an engineer, right? Within the digital space, there's so many different careers that are available. You can be in the commercial field, similar to myself. You can be in finance, you can be in HR. So it's not just coding, but if you decide that coding is the area that you're interested in, there are many organizations like WorldRemit that actually provide those opportunities that teach you how to code. So I think the most important thing is for women to feel encouraged that this is a space that they can enter and be successful and thrive in, like any other space.
Yes.
So I'd like to just encourage women as much as possible to to enter the space. The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. So would you like to talk about the opportunities that have sort of come up within this space that we couldn't have thought maybe 10 years ago, Sharon?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a lot of opportunities that are coming up, right? I think overall, if you look at in the digital space, so many opportunities have arisen. I mean, you only have to look at the stocks and shares of Amazon to know literally what an uplift that they've received during this particular pandemic. M-Pesa is another story that's really, really highly successful. M-Pesa has continued to go from strength to strength. Some people are doing a lot more mobile payments. We're seeing things like digital insurance starting to take space. People are setting up businesses. I mean, even the fact that people are using buy goods, pay bill to set up their own businesses, running a lot of Instagram businesses. I think now is the time when people are probably purchasing the most that they've ever had to purchase, online without leaving the comfort of their homes.
Yes.
And all of this is made possible because of digital payments, right? I can sit at home, I can order, flowers if I choose to, and pay for it remotely, and it can be delivered to me on a border, So I think all of this are all innovations, both large and small, but really they're all driven by mobile payments and digital payments. And I think digital payments are really what have changed over the last 10 years and really fueled the economy.
So as we clear this conversation this morning, and this is a question that I have from you as well. I'm just going to read it how it is. This is from Simon. Is asking, do you see WorldRemit changing, especially under its position, or is it going to be this company that just enables those transfers? What are you morphing into?
I think we're morphing beyond remittances, right? So we started off as a remittance payments company, and truly we're becoming cross-border. This year alone, we purchased the Sendwave, which is also a huge, another huge online platform business to create the Zeps group. So I think we are moving more into all manner of cross-border payments. We're doing more business. We're experimenting with business payments. We're looking at new innovations, including also digital currencies, and I think that equips us basically to deal and continue to be the leading digital payments business going into the future. So for sure, keep an eye on us, Simon. I think there's more to come.
Pretty much. All right. Lastly, therefore, Sharon, this morning, could you give me the general outlook for just the remittances that we've been talking about 2020 on how they've been quite healthy into the country? Are we going to see this trend continue? There are fears that once the dollar recovers, then we might not be able to be talking about how this, we'll not be talking about this trend that we've been seeing since 2020.
I think there was some initial views, and I think initially by the World Bank, where they had seen a decline of, I think, almost $45 million, I think, in sub-Saharan Africa, and that's what they had predicted at the beginning part of. We've been growing from strength to strength. This year we're at $3.8 billion, up 20%. I truly believe that trajectory will continue. Kenyans have seen and have a reason to invest back home. They are continuously resilient. I think this trend will continue to grow.
Sharon Kinyanjui, Director for Europe, Middle East and Africa Receive Markets WorldRemit. Thank you very much for taking your time to speak to us here at our Metropole Television. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Simba. I really, really appreciate it, and thanks for the conversation.
Anytime. All right, we take a short break, but once we come back, let's further that conversation and ask ourselves the question, where do we put our money in a 2021? We do have the CEO Mwangu Capital right here in the studio this morning, once we come back.